Hey friends, there was recent news about Brian Wilson. Now, Brian Wilson was a key member of the Beach Boys, and the fact that his family just got what we call a conservatorship of the person over him. So what does this mean? Why did they do this? And how can you prevent conservatorships? Because as I'll go through, you don't typically want a conservatorship. So a conservatorship is a legal term for basically, in plain English, when a family member or someone who's involved in a person's life goes to court to say, hey, look, in this case for Brian Wilson, they said, look, Mr. Wilson has serious cognitive issues. Perhaps it was dementia. They have to show evidence of this via doctor's records and maybe interviews with his caregivers or his primary medical team. And they go to a court and they say, hey, because of this, he's unable to make decisions for himself. And someone needs to make decisions for him. Court, we ask you to authorize us to step in to really manage his life. So in Mr. Wilson's case, it's actually interesting because many, many years ago, he had what later came out to be a very shady psychologist or psychiatrist who got a conservatorship over him, but that turned out to be the result of over-medication. He may have been manipulating Mr. Wilson. That conservatorship ended, but now it seems very clear that he needed the conservatorship because he couldn't manage his own affairs. Britney Spears had a conservatorship fairly recently, and that was ended for better or for worse, depending on your view of her situation. But basically, again, a conservatorship is where you go to court to say, hey, someone I love or someone in my life can't make good decisions for themselves. Court, please grant me authority to step in and make decisions for this person. It usually requires ongoing reporting to the courts. There's different types of conservatorships. Conservatorship of the person, meaning you get the right to make medical decisions, care decisions where that person lives, or conservatorship of the estate, meaning you step in and you're given the right to oversee someone's financial assets to make sure their bills are paid. That does require accountings to the court, so there's oversight. It's a public process. So conservatorships are usually what we consider the last resort. So what is the downside of a conservatorship? Well, they're very expensive. They can cost up to tens of thousands of dollars in legal and court fees to go to court and prove what's needed, to go through all the steps needed to get the conservatorship. 2, it's totally public. So anybody can see the medical condition of the person who's getting conserved, or it's widely available. 3, you are required to submit to court authority. You have to keep reporting to the courts. That can be a good or a bad thing, but a lot of families don't want major court oversight for family matters. So how can you avoid conservatorships? Now, to be clear, sometimes you need them, but you can avoid them by planning ahead and putting a good estate plan into place. A good estate plan involves 3 core documents: a revocable living trust, durable power of attorney for finances, and an advanced healthcare directive. How can these prevent a conservatorship? Let's say that I create a trust, power of attorney, advanced directive, and later, let's say that I'm losing my capacity. My wife might say I'm already losing my capacity. That's a really lame legal joke. Laugh or not. Anyway, if I'm losing capacity, if I have a living trust and a power of attorney advanced directive, I should be covered. Why? Because in a living trust, I get to name successor trustees. These are people who, upon my incapacity, can step in and manage my major assets, like my home, if I have real property, to manage that, my non-retirement accounts. A power of attorney lets me name people who can step in if I'm incapacitated to manage my day-to-day business of life issues, paying the utility bills, filing taxes, and other related issues. I'd be covered on my financial life. My trust would cover my major assets. The power of attorney would cover my day-to-day financials. What about medical decision-making? My advanced healthcare directive lets me name the person or people who can step in and communicate with doctors, view my medical records on my behalf if I can't communicate for myself or if I don't understand what's happening. So often, if I have these set up ahead of time and I lose my ability to make decisions, my family won't need to go to court. I've privatized my affairs by having an estate plan. I've avoided a conservatorship. But what if I don't have an estate plan and I become incapacitated? Well, I can't create an estate plan if I can't make decisions, so my family might be stuck going to court to get a conservatorship. Another situation where conservatorships are needed are where maybe someone is incapacitated. They still can kind of make decisions, but they're making bad decisions. Maybe their capacity is slipping. They refuse to create an estate plan, or they refuse to get the care they need. That's where families sometimes go to court, or caregivers go to court to get a court order to really take over and say, look, this person's making bad decisions. It's irrational. We need court authority to make better decisions for them and make sure they get the right type of care. But sometimes when there's serious mental illness, families will do that. Sometimes if there's dementia and no estate plan in place, they will do this. Or even if I create an estate plan and I name people to step in and help me make decisions if I'm incapacitated, what if I'm starting to act irrationally? they can't overrule me. Like my backup trustee, the person named in the power of attorney, they can make decisions for me, but it's very challenging for them to overrule me if I'm saying, no, I don't want to get this additional care. Even if they're named in my document, that's a tricky situation. So even there, they might have to go to court and say, look, Ms. Mark is making bad decisions. Yeah, I'm named in his documents, but I can't overrule him here. So please give me a court order, a conservatorship, to basically overrule his irrational choices. So conservatorships are sometimes necessary, but we really want to avoid them. How do you avoid them? Set up an estate plan ahead of time. Name people that you trust to step in if and when you need it. But sometimes they are necessary, as it looks like it was the case for Mr. Wilson. And I hope he is doing okay, and I hope he's getting the care that he needs. Comment, like, share this with someone who needs to understand this. Setting up an estate plan ahead of time can save your family tens of thousands of dollars in legal and other fees later. Get that into place. Stay tuned for a lot more. Subscribe. I hope everybody's staying safe, sane, and healthy.